You know, there's something bigger than the border between Canada and the United States. Something that binds our lands together better than any international boundary ever could. I'm on a journey to explore that essential element, Aboriginal people. And so I'm using the border as a guide to meet as many fascinating people in as many interesting places as I can. This is about our history, our culture, and our future. Because for me, the border is not a boundary. It's something completely different. And I call it the medicine line. Growing up, I was told a very generic version of history. It seemed that life on this continent didn't start until the Europeans arrived. And when they got here, well, it sounds like they were met with little resistance. And that, to me, is just a little unbelievable. So this time, I'm starting my journey south of the border in Idaho. And I'm gonna meet a woman who is a living part of history, and whose resistance made front-page news all over the world. Her name is Lenata Warjack, and she was the first Native American student to graduate from Berkeley. But I'm not really here to talk about that. I'm here to learn how Lenata and others took over Alcatraz Island back in 1969. Alcatraz was a prison in the San Francisco Bay, and it was often referred to as the Rock. From 1933 to 1963, it held some of the most notorious criminals in America, and if you were a bad guy, you just didn't want to go there. So I had to know why and how they took it over. I picked up Lenata in town, and we headed to the highest point around. And it's also a sacred place to the Shoshone Bannock tribe.
So they call it Bohogoi.
Bohogoi, Medicine Mound.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the occupation of Alcatraz begin?
In 1964, they stopped the prison that was there. There's a clause in the federal surplus property law and under the treaty to have the federal surplus property revert back to the Indians, and whenever that happens, if the Indians claim it, then they can take it. So then a group of Indians who were relocated in the Bay Area went out and claimed the island. The government would not recognize that. So when we heard that they were letting a San Francisco developer take the island to develop it, we decided to go out there and reestablish our claim to the island and the recognition of Indian treaties.
Did you realize how big this was going to be?
No, we thought that they would ignore it the way that they always did, but it was hard to ignore it when it's right in the middle of the San Francisco Bay and you have an international audience, and this was a peaceful takeover. I was a mother. I had my son out there with me. The other children were out there, there's no way I was going to endanger their lives. It was just countering all of the bad publicity, and it just reached a point where we couldn't get good press after a while.
Did you believe you could change the world?
No. I didn't even think about it. I just wanted to do what I thought was necessary to do. I didn't want to be a leader. I didn't want to do any of that. I just wanted to help. And I tried to sit back a lot of times, but I could not sit back and not say anything if the person in front of me wasn't saying it. If I didn't say nothing, nobody would say anything. And if you know better, you have to take that responsibility. You have to have that courage, and you have to say it. And it's hard.
But you do it again?
Any day, every day. I dream about Alcatraz, and I dream I'm flying over there. I mean, not on a plane, but just me flying. And I can feel that mist and that wind on my face that I love to feel. And I know I'm going back to Alcatraz.
Leneda offered to help paint a picture of what it was like back then.
Of course, that was a time of high discrimination. We just had to do what we could to protest against the treatment of the federal government against us.
Was there a moment when you went, oh my God, this is really happening? Like, we're really doing this?
Everybody wanted to do it. So when we got out there and went around the bay, then that's when we decided we're going to actually do it. All we wanted to do is have input into the system so that we wouldn't be the invisible people, but be recognized as human beings with a culture, with a history, everything.
You know, you never had that much to eat anyway, so
This is
it's not.
as comfortable as the average Indian reservation. Is that what you're saying?
It's average for an Indian way of life anyway. Now, I mean today, it's nothing different.
Aren't you just a bunch of kids?
I was a mother, I had children,
You took on the country.
but we were parents too, so we had to do something to bring about some kind of change, something.
Did they underestimate you?
They did. Well, we underestimated ourselves too because we didn't know it was going to turn into an international protest where people worldwide would recognize the struggle and the resistance that we had to go up against because they were going through the same thing internationally. And I heard from a lady from the Philippines they were going through that Marcos rebellion and people were getting killed. When she said the Indians started fighting, she said that it made them strong and they weren't going to take it either. And she said if we could do it, then they wanted to fight back as well. So it did have an international impact, and we weren't really aware of it, but we were just trying to get our information out. But people worldwide were going through struggles. And they thought if we could do it, then they would fight back too.
I didn't want to leave Leneda just yet. There was so much more I wanted to know about the takeover and what happened afterward. So there was a place I just had to check out for myself. And I hope that somehow Leneda could meet me there. Fort Hall, Idaho, where I met with Leneda Warjack, one of the original Native Americans that took over Alcatraz Island back in 1969. She's taught me so much already, but I need to know more. So my journey continues, further south to, well, you probably guessed it, San Francisco. And why am I going to San Francisco? Well, I'll tell you. Alcatraz Island. San Francisco is one of my favorite places on Earth. Walking the streets around Haight and Ashbury, you still get the feeling that the 1960s hippie resistance is all around you. I mean, this place is too cool. I was excited to hear that Leneda was in town. But man, it blew me away when she said, why don't we make a trip to Alcatraz and I'll show it to you the way I know it. Now, I've been to Alcatraz before, learning about the jail and the history of its prisoners. And I thought it was interesting, but being here with Leneda, who actually lived on this island and raised her family here, wow. This
is the first sign that we changed. It had warning, keep off U.S. property, and we changed the U.S. to Indian, and
Cool.
that was our sign. This is the warden's house, and it got burned in the fires in 1970. This was one of the first places that we went to hide out the first night of the occupation.
Lenita told me there was a series of mysterious fires on the island during the occupation, and some suspected the government did this to drive them away. Well, it's years later and nothing's ever been proven. But in one fire, Lenita burnt both hands as she was shielding her son from the flames. Her resolve remained unshaken.
Prior to that time, we were still oppressed and discriminated against, so people had to go undercover, so to speak. So this was kind of a re-identification to let everyone know that we are who we are and we're proud of it. It was like a rock that hit the water and it sent out all these ripples and waves all across, and our people got inspired and they tried to do whatever they could to hold on to their lands and to have a voice, to say something about all the injustices that were going on. In this country, generally, overall, things are changing for the better, and hopefully we can continue to have our voice represented in justice.
There's something kind of majestic just about the way it is, right? Like when you look up, it's wow.
It's such a good place, it's such a good point on the island to think about all the people and everything that's going on in the world. It was really a magnificent place.
I've never thought of it that way before, but she's right. The history of this site is steeped in jailing murderers and gangsters and the mentally ill. But for Lenita, it was a place where she took a stand. A place where she and her family lived for over 18 months. Signs of the occupation are everywhere, from up high on the water tower to little things like this handprint on the wall. I couldn't believe how fast time was going by, and there was just one more place I had to check out.
So this is the cell house.
Yep, this is it. Some of us lived here. It was during the rainy season, so a lot of people decided it was the warmest place to stay.
This is cool.
We didn't necessarily know what these rooms were.
Wasn't it spooky? Like kind of running around here in the dark, right?
It represented man's inhumanity met to man, but we wanted it to be different, to change that. We went everywhere and explored every part of this island.
And at night, it was dark. No lights, right?
That's right.
Wow. Stella, March 3rd, 1970. Who's Stella?
Stella Leach had the infirmary. She was a nurse from the Bay Area. She helped a lot of people.
As we strolled along the cell block, well, Lenita, she was moved to do something that she's always wanted to, but she never had the chance. Until now. And she actually invited me to be part of it.
So I'm going to ask the spirits, our ancestors and our grandmothers and grandfathers, spirit of life, to bless this prison. It helps bring in the good spirits. We stay strong as long as we have our spiritual base, and that's what it's all about, is to strengthen ourselves and to strengthen our spirit. It's always great to come back. It's wonderful. I love coming back to Alcatraz, and gives me a chance to do some nice meditation and say some good prayers for everybody throughout the world.
Being in Alcatraz and learning about the occupation from a woman who lived it, well, that's almost too much to put into words. What I can say, though, is Leneda's actions have made a difference in this world. The impact Leneda made on this rocky island will continue to influence all peoples in a positive way for generations. So this is the part of my journey that I will never forget. But I feel like I'm being pulled back on the road. So I'm heading north, back home to Winnipeg. And just when you think the ripples of activism have faded, well, there they show up again. And this time, it's in your own backyard. I'm talking about Idle No More. Before I left on my journey, no one even uttered these words together. Now, it has become a movement that is picking up speed worldwide. This whole thing was sparked by Bill C-45, and that bill threatens Indigenous rights for all Canadians. So I'm meeting with 2 local organizers to tell me more about an event taking place in Winnipeg right now.
4 women had created the Idle No More movement in Saskatchewan, and they wanted to have a rally in response to Bill C-45. And they wanted to expand and have other cities. You know, we all need to stand up for our people and our rights and our future, and we all need to be together on this.
There's one thing we all do, and we all drink water. So more people need to wake up to the fact that this is about the water, most importantly, you know, the life giver, and we need to step up.
It's a movement to protect our land, our water, and our future. Today is actually the Idle No More National Day of Action.
We have 4 communities of youth walking in.
We have speakers and around us and a very, very special guest.
I got a message that Buffy St. Marie would be in town, and there might be a chance we could get her to come.
Really? It just happened?
Our people talked about how the youth will rise, and it's happening. It's just people are doing it. Like, nobody is saying, like...
There's the marchers as we speak.
Oh my God.
Can you believe that?
Tell me about the walking. Give me a little information on this.
So I think there's 30 or 40 youth that originally started the walk on the 25th. So some have been walking from Bloodvein and then Hollow Water, and then picked up more along the way.
For days.
Yeah. This is part of our event, is that we're meeting up with the youth at the legislative.
Regarding the human spirit, what have you guys learned?
It's from the heart. Idle No More is not going anywhere.
So I grab my camera, and the next thing I know, I find myself in the thick of it at the Idle No More demonstration at the Manitoba Legislative Grounds. As you can see, it's pretty cold out today. But that doesn't stop anybody, because the people, they start arriving. This is my own backyard. Right here behind me, this is the movement. Singers, dancers coming up, a big, big round dance. Then out of nowhere, they announced that Buffy St. Marie is speaking. But wouldn't you know it, the cameras surrounded her, and I can't get in there with mine.
I can't get near her.
I couldn't really see her because there were so many people, but I certainly heard what she said. And just like everybody on those grounds, I felt the power in those words.
This is the educational opportunity of a lifetime. The Canadian Aboriginal
Indigenous people with inherent rights guaranteed by not only the Crown but Canada itself. I'm so proud that we all have the opportunity to stick up for the best in Canada.
With all this happening in my own hometown, I can't help but think about my time with the native warjack and how her actions years ago have given Aboriginal people a voice today. It also makes me think about my family and my story. As I've said before, my Aboriginal heritage was hidden from me up until a few years ago. Not because my family was ashamed to be Aboriginal, but because it was seen as a danger to be labeled that. Our survival depended on changing our identity, but along the way, an ancestor of mine resisted. He simply told the truth, that he was Mi'kmaq. And that's how I eventually found out I was Mi'kmaq too. I owe him for that action, for his resistance. Because at this moment, I feel closer to understanding who I really am and which direction I need to travel to next as I continue on my journey.